been looking at since the Common Inspection Framework changed. I've been waiting for this for 15 years. So I originally started Well Worth It in 2011, and I always said, want to be good. Want to be good if Ofsted cared about well-being. And now it does. So what I've done is I've looked at that through the lens of our Wellbeing Ambassadors programme, and also some success stories of what schools that I've worked with over the last 11 years doing Wellbeing Ambassadors, sort of, and synthesized and aligned it all to give you some practical tips and ideas about how you could use a program like our Wellbeing Ambassadors program to explicitly evidence well-being for Ofsted. So Wellbeing Ambassadors isn't a new program, it's evolved over the last 11 years, and what we learned from doing all that work over those years is, if you just go and run the workshop yourself, if we go into a school and run a peer mentoring or a Wellbeing Ambassadors program ourselves, the school didn't take enough accountability for it. They would go, oh, that was nice, that was a lovely day, and then they'd go back to normal. I realised is that we needed to set it up to be a success. So I introduced training about the program, how to get SLT buy-in, why we do it the way we do it, and also follow-on support as well, which is all in the wraparound package in my Wellbeing Ambassadors program, along with all the resources to deliver it yourself. We have two differentiated programs, a primary one and a secondary one. It's now in over 200 schools nationally and internationally, and we're in 19 different countries. I've been doing this consistently for 15 years. I'm like, finally, it's in the Ofsted inspection framework. So I want to share some of the findings, basically. I want to share some of the stuff I've learned along the way and like what schools have taught me and things like that. Depending on how you're going to use the program, it can hit these parts of the 8 principles to the whole school approach. I'm sure all you guys will be familiar with this if you've done your senior mental health lead training. Our versions are branded colours, it's the same stuff. It hits enabling student voice, leadership and management, if your leadership team are listening to the ambassador's voice and using what they're saying to shape a wellbeing strategy and ethos, which is what's in Ofsted now. And also, depending on if you're using Wellbeing Ambassadors to then run peer-to-peer interventions, it also can create another level of targeted support for your vulnerable students. So just let's clarify, what do we mean by peer support? Peer support programs are those that train and use young people to help others learn and develop emotionally, socially and academically. The term that people use the most is peer mentoring. I tend to use the term Wellbeing Ambassadors, and I'll explain why as we go along. Peer support is more than peer mentoring. Peer support is any kind of support where a young person is supporting another young person to develop and learn emotionally, socially or academically. So the benefits include positive peer relationships. In the Ofsted framework, this is a massive theme, and as Holly said already, in the school she's notes that's been inspected, they were looking for that explicitly, and it's so hard to evidence that in a tangible fashion because it's smiling more, it's less swearing, it's the way it feels in the atmosphere, you know, it's not always so visible. Are the children kind to each other? Is there positive behaviour in the classroom? Is like that citizenship is the language they're using as well. It fosters belonging and connection, so having a culture of positive peer relationships and children supporting each other helps kids feel that they belong at school. One of the reasons why there's an increase in emotionally based school avoidance is because there's not enough pull factors towards school. So if we can help a child or a young person feel that they belong and they have greater connections to school, they're much more likely to go. That's just one. It's not the silver bullet for emotionally based school avoidance, but it's part of a bigger pattern of support. Empathy, so learning how to have empathy and you know, model that through relationships and connections. It gives young people empowerment and ownership. When they are the peer supporter, when they are the wellbeing ambassador, they become more empowered and have ownership over the work that they're doing in that role. It increases access to support and it increases capacity for your school, because there's just more people doing more things, and it's about young. It's not about one person being the one person that everyone knows to go to, and it's always knocking on pastoral's door. It's about low level small interactions, little wobbles, homework worries, or option choices, or not feeling settled when you're in year 7, that can be addressed by a wellbeing ambassador, that take out that escalation that results in needing an adult support or targeted intervention from an adult. It also can increase access to support through marketing. There's a lot of stigma in some schools around, we don't want to be seen to be going to the wellbeing hub, or we don't want to go to pastoral because then everyone will know that we've got an issue, and it's embarrassing. So a wellbeing ambassador can be the person that makes it safe and makes it okay and makes it normal to reach out and ask for help. So what's the difference between a peer mentor and a wellbeing ambassador? Because I use the terms interchangeably, and people come to my website looking for peer mentoring, thinking that that's what they need because they've heard somewhere in some conference or some document that that's the thing that they need to do. But I explicitly call it wellbeing ambassadors. But my program does both of these things. But our focus is mainly on wellbeing ambassadors. So peer mentoring is a targeted intervention. It's relationship based, where one child learns specific skills to act as a mentor for the other child or young person, helps with specific pupils who need extra support. So it can be like academic peer mentoring as well, like maths buddy or reading partner, like a safety net for pupils who are struggling but who don't need an adult. So low level things. It's very ethically challenging in this, because we're in the mental health space, to be offering peer mentoring for mental health needs. There is no place in this world for a child, because you're a child until they're 18, to be supporting another child who's low mood or anxious, with, to address things that an adult should be supporting with. But they can help them with stress and worry about options, or not feeling, they don't know where to go, or they've had a friendship falling out. Like, all of those things can be supported by peer mentoring. And then we have wellbeing ambassadors, which is universal and preventative. So it's a much more of a holistic approach that focuses on school culture and shaping school culture through the use of the pupil voice, that they're visible and they're representatives of the culture. They take the temperature of the school environment, and they promote belonging, kindness, and inclusion. So you're teaching them specific skills and strategies like empathy, listening, what a positive relationship is, so that they are role models, and then they themselves decide how are they going to showcase that. So are they going to do assemblies? Are they going to make a video? Are they going to do posters? Are they going to wear baseball caps, which is one of the primary schools that I work with? They ended up wearing baseball caps in the playground, and then other kids that looked a bit lonely, they would go up to them and they would be like, are you okay? They're taking the temperature of the school environment. Holly, you're implementing this right now. Can I come to, would you say that's what your understanding of it is?
Yeah, I think it's for me, obviously, we've got quite a wide wellbeing hub, but there is still an area of students that doesn't feel comfortable maybe talking to adults through trauma, through ACEs. And I think it's sometimes that gap, but also the main thing I want to do is that culture you're talking about, create a culture where kids aren't at the end of lessons going, I need to speak to this member of staff, and then feeling not heard and validated with their feelings because staff are busy, when actually it is something small. And that's a perfect example about options, where our year nines are picking options tomorrow, and I'd love for our year 10s that did this last year. So my idea is for these year nines that are doing it now, next year they will be part of the after school sessions. They will be going into tutors and talking about subjects and almost helping, because a lot of the time they don't talk about the subject itself as how it feels as a student. The staff tell you how it is as staff. Their experiences help transfer across. So my big things is lunch clubs, assemblies, and kind of transition as well. So when the year sixes come up in year 7, put in our year 9 ambassadors that don't have a purpose at that point. They're kind of old enough to know the school but not going into GCSEs. Once a week, putting them in tutors to kind of help with that.
And have you, because you're in Sheffield, have you got lots of kids coming from lots of different primaries into your
Yeah,
school?
I think we've got like 9 feeder schools, but also we sometimes have kids that are traveling 2 buses over 40 minutes. So we have quite a eclectic students, some students that come across and have never met anyone. So having that kind of ambassador support helps.
I love the idea of the helping with the options, because that's just normalizing. It's decision making, isn't it? And like the emotional sort of feelings, and we were in your shoes and now we're okay and you'll be okay too when you get here. So it's really like it sounds so simple, but often the real powerful things are the most simple things. I love that idea. How this relates to Ofsted's expectations. Okay, so I've mapped this out to key bits of Ofsted. So personal development and well-being, peer mentors contribute by supporting vulnerable pupils with confidence and resilience, just as Holly has just explained. Uh, Wellbeing ambassadors contribute by building a culture where all pupils feel valued and supported. That it's okay to feel a bit wobbly and go to someone for help. That's how they contribute. Inclusion, to help targeted pupils access schools socially. Again, Holly just explained that. Promoting inclusive culture and participation for all. Behaviour and attendance, re-engaging pupils at risk of absence or behaviour issues. So what we want to do is nip things in the bud whilst the kids are wobbling and starting to disengage, is stop it escalating, so that maybe you're identifying a cohort that are a bit like unconfident and they have a wellbeing ambassador, or they go to a lunchtime club that's run by ambassadors, and they just play games or make cakes or do fun stuff, but it helps them keep that connection to school and find school safe and enjoyable and ride out some of the wobbles so they don't just retreat. Creating positive peer norms and relationships. It's normal to need to go to pastoral sometimes. It's normal to find choosing your option stressful. It's normal to be worried about exams. Whereas a lot of young people think that they're the only one, and they think that they're weird, and they think that they don't deserve help, or they're going to be a bother, or they're going to be a nuisance. So to make it safe, that you can just pop into the pastoral room, or you can just go to this person for help, or this person to ask something, is like creating that culture of safety. Yeah, leadership and pupil voice, providing structured pupil support roles would be peer mentoring and giving people leadership influence over school culture. So that's where, so if the pupils, if the students are saying there's an issue with no one listening, no one listens, and it's stressing the teacher out, the teacher then starts shouting and all the kids are rude and we don't like it and we don't feel safe here, because I've heard young people say things like that, or there's been racism and bullying that teachers weren't even aware of, or misogyny. That's another school that I work with in Wales, and they were saying there's an issue with male misogyny. This was a few years ago before it became a big thing as well, and it doesn't make the girls feel safe. Then the young people are voicing that to SLT, and then the adults are sort of saying, right, what do we need to do about this to help our pupils feel safe? Nuance. This is all about being nuanced. There is no like one size fits all approach. There's no silver bullet. It's about what can you take from what I'm saying and make it fit the needs of your culture, your school culture, and your community and your local community and everything else. I must say that Holly is really good at this, because what percentage of pupils are identified as needs in your schools? A big percentage, wasn't it?
So PP is like over 60% were from a really deprived area in Sheffield. And then our SEN is, I think, something like 30% higher than the average. So in
So
terms of then neurodivergent students, but ACEs as well are really high, obviously, again, from that area. We've got a lot of students that are coming to us with either SEMH needs, but also ACEs.
just to get advice: adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, social emotional mental health needs, special educational needs, and areas of deprivation. So most of the children in the school have experienced trauma.
I would say at least one version of it, whether that, I mean, definitely with COVID as well on top of it, I think the increase in DV, so domestic violence, I mean, then you've got neglect as well is quite high. Not intentional neglect, and the new changes to the attendance and the fining as well has obviously raised other areas of neglects there.
Mm. So Holly School has got a highly complex student cohort. However, they've been doing pioneering work around wellbeing by creating a wellbeing culture of listening and like positive proactive strategies. And that's why the kids are going to your school, aren't they? And they come in 40 minutes because they know their needs are going to be met there. So it does work. Series that are incorporated into Wellbeing Ambassadors program are peer-to-peer support, like I've mentioned previously, voice-led early intervention, the rights of the child for participation, positive psychology, because I'm a positive psychologist, and positive psychology is the science of well-being. Positive education is positive psychology, the science of well-being in educational settings, and I integrate that with coaching skills and approach, because positive psychology is like a range of tools and interventions that are proven to improve well-being. For example, gratitude, you might have heard that one, it's popular. Whereas the coaching skills and approach amplify, make those things better, and I think make them more effective and help young people make them their own and adapt them. And the coaching skills also are a way of having positive relationships. That is a way of developing well-being. So positive relationships during childhood and adolescence are a well-being intervention themselves, but they're kind of like underrated and underutilized. Adolescents need to belong to the peer group. It's a developmental stage that they go through. So we're leveraging that developmental stage by explicitly teaching strategies and tools to have positive relationships during a time where their brain is being developed, so it can get hardwired in and act as a protective factor. So coaching is about it's about helping people find real life solutions to real life problems. Coaching is about having the skills and tools to ask the right questions, which helps somebody else figure out their own solution. What we tend to do with young people and children is tell them what they should do. You need to do this. Next time you get angry, you need to do that. We never ask them, like, what would help you when you've not done this? What were you doing? What was different about that time? How can that help you? How can you do that again next time? What have you learned from it? So you're asking all these questions to help them figure it out themselves, and you're giving the space for them to be able to do that. So the Wellbeing Ambassador is integrated with a coaching approach, but also you're kind of teaching coaching skills light. It's not teaching them to be coaches, because taking bits of coaching skills and doing coaching based activities with the pupils through the program, but also you're asking coaching questions, because I've written them into the manual to facilitate the workshop with the students. So you're coaching them through the tools and activities as well. The kind of skills that, like the coaching light that is covered in the Wellbeing Ambassadors program, is listening, and we do that through games. And then they reflect upon themselves and what parts of them are, are they non-judgmental, are they motivated, are they empowering, and we'll say, what does empowering mean, how do you know you're being empowering, how can you be more empowering, being supportive, being responsible, being reliable, being a good communicator. And when I do this bit of the program, I get them to score themselves on a scale of 1 to 5 out of those things, and then I say, which one are you going to work on for the rest of the day and then going forward? And they pick one, and they'll come and I'll say, well, how are you going to do that? And then they'll have to share an idea with the group. So I'm going to be more motivated because I'm going to do my homework on time, blah blah blah. So they're like thinking on the fly about how they're going to find strategies to improve those skills, and then how they use those skills as a role model to then support peers. Topics that are covered. So this is a picture of the resources. So the Wellbeing Ambassadors program is a toolkit of resources. It's a trainer's manual that's 40 pages long, a PowerPoint presentation, a workbook for the students, and you learn how to deliver that, or I can come into school and deliver it for you. There's a primary version and a secondary version. They're different. The topics that are covered are that we define well-being. We think about what, it's facilitating team working throughout. We do contracting around, how do we establish a partnership, what the roles of responsibility and safeguarding requirements are in that role of being a wellbeing ambassador, what the barriers to access are, and we discussed that earlier. Positive relationships, why it's important to have them, why they're good for your well-being, being a role model and modeling a positive relationship, and who are your role models and how do you learn from them, which helps them recognize their strengths. stress management, coping strategies for themselves and to share with peers, positive coping, and then running mental health and wellbeing awareness campaigns. Now, depending on how you want to do this, as a peer mentor or as a wellbeing champion, you put the emphasis on different places. So if you're doing something that's more about reducing stigma, you might spend more time thinking about campaigning and mental health campaigns, defining well-being so everyone has a shared language of well-being and mental health in the school. If you want to do more of peer mentoring, you'd spend more time doing things around positive relationships, communication, active listening, and asking questions, and conversation starters. So all the tools are in the program. You just put the emphasis in different places depending on how you want to use it. What I tend to find happens is schools think they want peer mentoring and they think they want one-to-one, and then they do the training and they end up doing something a lot more holistic and about culture. So just what Ofsted's looking for. Pupils are emotional well-being, confidence and self-worth. All of that are improved by this program, as I've just said. Opportunities to develop social skills, empathy and leadership. Yes, they have to apply to be an ambassador. That teaches them leadership skills. Pupils' ability to manage relationships and challenges. Evidence that pupils feel valued and listened to. Can you see how it's all there already, how through everything I've covered? Peer support or pupil-led program can meet this. Peer mentoring, buddy systems and wellbeing ambassadors build confidence and connection. Reduce isolation, normalise help seeking, as I've been talking about earlier. Pupil councils, and you can call it whatever you want in your school. Like my program is called Wellbeing Ambassadors. In lots of different schools, they're called lots of different things. Provide authentic pupil voice and showing pupils how they're shaping school culture. I've kind of mentioned that already. As I said, Ofsted area leadership and government. Ofsted expectations: leader listen to pupils and respond. Structured feedback loops. So you just got evidence. How are you doing a structured feedback loop based on this how does this program feed into your structured feedback loop? It doesn't have to be fancy. One of the schools that I work with, they just had a table. And they just had a table that said, these are the actions that the ambassadors are doing. And then whenever they looked at the school improvement plan, they would look at that table. And then they would update it every year. Personal development, active citizenship and confidence, leadership roles and response. You're giving them a leadership role. Behaviour, respectful culture, peer-led modelling of positive behaviour, inclusion, equitable participation, representation of disadvantaged pupils. One of the case studies on the website is about how the Wellbeing Ambassadors put on a autism and support group in the library because they noticed that young people with ASD were quite isolated and kind of wandering around, so they just played games and stuff in the library, and it was a safe place for them to go. But the young people identified that. And then another school in Birmingham, they were looking at racism, and they had a cultural celebration day and brought in all the food and did dance and costume from all the multiple different nationalities that were representative in that school. But the teachers weren't even aware that there was a racism issue until the ambassadors brought it up. So information about the programme, as I've said before, Wellbeing Ambassadors is an online package of support. It's a train the trainer programme. You do an online course where you learn. It's only 2.5 hours. You dip in and out of it, where you learn to use the materials. The reason why I do it like that is so that you have ownership and accountability over it to make it your own. And when you're reading through it and you think, well, that bit wouldn't maybe go with my students, you can tweak it and you can be like, well, I need to spend more time on stress because I know that they're really stressed for XYZ reason. So imagine, like, you can do it word for word or you can make it your own.